Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world with me, Deepika, coming up in the next half an hour. Russian President Vladimir Putin offers different options to mediate and ways to reduce tensions in Iran's conflict. Kremlin says proposals are still on the table. US President Donald Trump warns Iran with death, fire and fury if it disrupts shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran guards say they will determine the end on the 11th day of the conflict. Iran's foreign minister says negotiations with the US no longer on the agenda. Arakchi adds it will continue with missile attacks for as long as necessary. Government of India issues Natural Gas Supply Regulation Order 2026 to regulate production, supply and distribution of natural gas in the country following disruptions in global supplies. And oil prices continue to swing wildly. Trump weighs steps to ease oil prices, including Russia sanctions relief. G7 decides on necessary measures at emergency meeting. Good evening to all the viewers joining us at this evening broadcast. And to begin with the biggest news that we are tracking for you, big news coming in from Russia right now. Kremlin said on Tuesday that Russian President Vladimir Putin has offered different options to mediate US-Iran-Israel conflict. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told the reporters that Moscow is ready to provide any assistance it can to reduce the tensions in West Asia.
From the very beginning of this Iran crisis, before the military phase began, President Putin proposed options for mediation in good offices that could help reduce tensions. Many of these proposals are still on the table, as the Russian president said yesterday. Russia is ready and will be happy to provide assistance to the extent possible.
Многие из этих предложений по-прежнему на столе.
Another breaking news coming in from the United States. President Donald Trump in an interview said that it's possible he would be willing to talk with Iran. Now, talking to Fox News on Monday, Trump said that it is possible that he would be willing to talk with Iran. The cable news network confirmed this on Tuesday. And the other big news coming in from West Asia is that the Israeli military said on Tuesday it had begun a new wave of strikes on Tehran on the 11th day of the West Asia conflict. The military, in a brief statement, said the IDF has begun a wave of strikes against Iranian terror regime targets in Tehran. Qatar has meanwhile warned on Tuesday that attacks on regional energy infrastructure on both the sides during the conflict would be felt economically throughout the world. So this is the latest that we are tracking for you from the ongoing West Asia tensions. And the head of energy giant Saudi Aramco also warned the West Asia conflict could have catastrophic consequences on oil markets, describing the crisis as unprecedented. Aramco CEO and President Amin H. Nasser on Tuesday said it was vital to reopen the Strait of Hormuz that normally carries about 20% of global oil supplies but has been closed by the ongoing conflict. He said the disruption has caused a severe chain reaction in not only shipping and insurance, but there is also a drastic domino effect on aviation, agriculture, automotive and other industries. The Aramco CEO said there would be catastrophic consequences for the world's oil markets the longer the disruption goes on, and the more drastic the consequences will be for the global economy. US President Donald Trump stated on Monday that the US will intensify actions against Iran and would go further and further while assuring that military operations would end very soon, helping stabilize turbulent markets amid the escalating West Asia conflict.
We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here, I could call it, or we could go further, and we're going to go further. But the big risk on that war has been over for 3 days. We wiped them out in the first 2 days.
Now, following the appointment of Mojtaba Khamenei, son of the assassinated Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, as Iran's new supreme leader, Tehran unleashed missile and drone barrages on Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Israel and even Turkey, intercepted by NATO defences. Iran maintains the Strait of Hormuz blockade, halting most tanker traffic and driving benchmark crude to highs before a partial retreat. Wall Street turned positive on Trump's short-term excursion remarks after over 5,000 targets were struck. France is leading defensive efforts to reopen the vital choke point post the conflict peak, while Russia has vowed unwavering support to Iran amid regional rallies and intensifying Hezbollah clashes in Lebanon. Meanwhile, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, or the IRGC, has declared that Iran alone will determine the end of the ongoing war, rejecting US President Donald Trump's claims of imminent victory and demands for unconditional surrender. Brigadier General Qamar Haider, Deputy Commander of Khatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters, warned that if US and Israeli attacks persist, Tehran will block even 1 liter of oil from leaving the region. He further vowed unrelenting retaliatory strikes and designated all American military bases across West Asia as legitimate targets, signaling Tehran's resolve to impose its will despite heavy losses and the prolonged regional crisis. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi stated on Tuesday that his country would keep fighting as long as necessary. In an interview with an American broadcaster, Araghchi effectively ruled out negotiations with Washington, saying Tehran had a very bitter experience of talking with the Americans. Recalling previous US attacks during earlier negotiations, Araghchi said he did not believe negotiations with the Americans would be on the agenda anymore. Speaking of the strategic Strait of Hormuz, he said that Iran has no intention to close it right now, but as the war continues, they will consider every scenario. And earlier, US President Donald Trump issued a forceful warning on Truth Social, saying that any Iranian action to halt oil flow through the Strait of Hormuz would trigger an overwhelming American response. He stated Iran would be struck 20 times harder than previous attacks and that the United States would destroy easily destroyable targets to render Iran's rebuilding virtually impossible as a nation. Trump described the potential devastation as death, fire and fury, while expressing hope it would not occur. He framed the US military capability as a gift to China and other major oil importers reliant on the strait, urging appreciation for America's protective role amid the escalating West Asia conflict. Meanwhile, Iran's security chief Ali Larijani on Tuesday warned US President Donald Trump, saying the Islamic Republic was not afraid of his empty threats. In a social media post, he said, and I quote him, "Iran is not afraid of your empty threats. Even those greater than you could not eliminate the Iranian nation." Unquote. Now, his remarks came in response to a post by Trump threatening to hit Iran harder if it stops the oil flow through the strategic Strait of Hormuz. Now, G7 energy ministers will discuss how to tackle soaring energy prices due to the West Asia conflict on a call on Tuesday, while a group of European Union leaders will do so later in the day. Oil prices fell on Tuesday after hitting their highest level in more than 3 years in the prior session, as US President Donald Trump predicted the war in the Middle East could end soon, easing concerns about prolonged disruptions to global oil supplies. Oil prices surged past $100 $100 a barrel on Monday, hitting session highs of $119.5 for Brent and $119.48 for WTI, which is their highest since mid-2022, as supply cuts by Saudi Arabia and other producers during the expanding US-Israeli war with Iran stoked fears of major disruptions to global supplies. Prices later retreated after Russian President Vladimir Putin held a call with Trump and shared proposals aimed at a quick settlement to the Iran war, according to a Kremlin aide, easing concerns about a prolonged supply disruption. Now, Gulf oil producers have begun cutting output as the US-Israeli war on Iran disrupted shipping in the region. Over the weekend, Iraq slashed production at its main southern oil fields by 70% to 1.3 million barrels per day, while Kuwait Petroleum Corporation also began reducing output and declared force majeure. Adding to the cuts, Saudi Arabia has now begun trimming the production, sources confirmed on Monday. European gas prices tumbled around 15% on Tuesday after US President Donald Trump signaled that the US-Israel war on Iran could end sooner than expected. The Dutch TTF natural gas contract, considered the European benchmark, fell to around €48 after rising sharply the day before. Fuel prices at Spanish pumps have risen sharply since the start of the West Asia conflict, with diesel prices climbing more than 20%, according to government data released on Tuesday. The average price of standards diesel rose from €1.435 per litre on the 27th of February, the day before the war began, to €1.759 per litre on Monday, a 22.6% increase, according to Spain's Ecological Transition Ministry, based on nationwide service station averages. Unleaded gasoline also climbed from €1.525 to €1.71 per litre on Monday, which is a 12.1% increase. Egypt increased domestic fuel prices by up to 30% on Tuesday, citing exceptional global energy pressures caused by the West Asia war, which has disrupted oil supplies and shipping routes. The increases, announced by the Petroleum Ministry, apply to gasoline, diesel and natural gas used in vehicles due to supply chain disruptions, higher risks and rising shipping and insurance costs. Oil prices briefly surged above $119 a barrel on Monday before plunging to around $84 after US President Donald Trump said the US-Israel war with Iran would end soon. Diesel, which is one of Egypt's most widely used fuels, rose by 3 Egyptian pounds, or about 17.1%, to £20.5 per litre, up from £17.5. Natural gas used for vehicles saw the largest hike, jumping 30% to £13 per cubic metre. The central government of India has assessed that the ongoing conflict in the West Asia has disrupted liquefied natural gas shipments through the Strait of Hormuz, and suppliers have invoked force majeure, necessitating the diversion of gas to priority sectors. The central government has issued directions to gas producers, marketers and pipeline operators that includes all entities involved in production, import, marketing, transportation or supply of the natural gas. Now, this is the Natural Gas Supply Regulation Order 2026. The impact of the order is 100% supply to domestic PNG and CNG for transport, 80% supply to tea, manufacturing and other industrial consumers via national gas grid, 80% supply to industrial and commercial CGT consumers, 70% supply to fertilizer and plants. With 30% of India's natural gas coming through the Strait of Hormuz, the order establishes priority allocations, ensuring these sectors receive preferential supply. Now, India is also sourcing gas via alternative routes to offset potential shortages as well. And Germany is now the world's 4th largest exporter of weapons, according to a new report. Its rise was fueled by a booming defense industry amid heightened geopolitical tensions and ongoing wars. DW correspondent Chiponda Chimpelu is in Berlin and getting us more from there. Good evening, Chiponda. Break down the latest figures for us.
Well, Germany's defense industry is growing rapidly, so much that Germany has moved up one spot to become the world's fourth biggest exporter of arms. Now, that is what the latest figures from the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI, show. Now, SIPRI data shows that from 2021 to 2025, Germany's trade in arms increased, and it accounted for just under 6% of global arms exports. So Germany has actually now overtaken China as the world's fourth biggest exporter of arms. Now, the most important region for German arms deliveries is Europe, and that was followed by the Middle East and then Asia and Oceania. And the main drivers of Germany's booming defense industry here in Europe are the war in Ukraine and the uncertainty about the U.S. commitment to NATO. Now, that is what has led to a significant increase in military spending by many European states.
And how do the different regions compare?
Well, in the 5 years from 2021 to 2025, Europe became the most important region for arms imports in the world, and it actually accounted for a third of the market. And Asia and Oceania slipped to second place, but it wasn't that much far behind Europe. The Middle East was actually in third place with just over a quarter of arms imports. Now, the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 was, of course, the biggest contributing factor to Europe's increase in arms purchases. And of course, since then, what we have been seeing is that many European countries are shoring up their own military capabilities, also partly because the Trump administration has insisted they do that. And the White House has also made European leaders question whether they can really rely on the U.S. for security in the future. Now, the EU has actually not been invited by Washington in the negotiations with Kiev and the Kremlin for a ceasefire to end the ongoing war in Ukraine. And in terms of the arms trade, the U.S. remains by far the biggest supplier in the world.
And in this scenario, just how dominant is the US in the global arms trade right now, Chiponda?
The U.S. accounted for 42% of all international arms deliveries in the 5-year period that ended last year, according to SIPRI. It actually sold more weapons in that time span than it did from 2016 to 2020. And that is why there's been a bit of a panic here in Europe over the ongoing strain in the transatlantic relations. European countries are still very much reliant on the United States for the supply of arms. And while there have been efforts to ramp up production here on the continent, it just isn't happening as quickly as it could. And on top of that, collaborations between countries doesn't always work. And last month, for instance, there were many reports that suggested that the joint French-German Future Combat Air System, FCAS, was near collapse. Now, that project has been in the works for years, but it may very well not be realized because of differences between Germany and France. And European countries will need to collaborate more in defense if they do want to reduce their dependence on the United States.
All right, thank you so much, Chiponda, for getting us the latest from Berlin. Time to take a short break. We'll be right back.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India Live. Updates on the budget session of the Indian Parliament now. The lower house has taken up discussions on the resolution seeking the removal of Speaker Om Birla on Tuesday. Participating in the discussion, Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju negated the opposition's allegations, saying that Speaker Om Birla conducted the functioning of the House in an impartial manner. Rijiju said that during the tenure of Om Birla as Lok Sabha Speaker, several reforms have taken place and the highest number of matters have been raised during the 0 hour. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh released Defence Forces Vision 2047, a roadmap for a future-ready Indian military in New Delhi on Tuesday. The blueprint by the headquarters integrated defence staff aims to transform the defence forces into a modern, integrated and technologically advanced military supporting India's goal of Viksit Bharat by the year 2047. The document focuses on jointness among the services, innovation, advanced technologies and Atmanirbharta or self-reliance in defence to prepare the military for future warfare challenges. The Indian Air Force demonstrated rapid and response operational precision in Arunachal Pradesh, deploying a Mi-17 V5 helicopter to battle a major forest fire in Mibo and Sigar areas of Pasighat. Over multiple sorties, the IAF released 66,000 litres of water to contain the place and protect nearby habitations. The swift action helped prevent the fire from spreading further and safeguarded local communities. Authorities praised the IAF's timely intervention, highlighting its crucial role in disaster management and emergency response. In latest updates on Nepal elections, counting for 165 seats under the first-past-the-post system is complete and counting for proportional representation continues. Rashtriya Swatantrata Party has won in 125 constituencies, Nepali Congress has won 18 seats, UML has 10 seats and NCP has won 8 seats only. RPP has won 1 seat, Shram Sanskriti Party has won 3 and an independent candidate won 1 single seat. The Election Commission had completed the counting of approximately 90% of the votes cast under the proportional representation system. So far, 6 political parties have crossed the PR threshold, with the RSP leading by a significant margin. Any party must cross the PR threshold, which is by securing 3% of the valid votes. As RSP is the largest winner in the 5th of March elections, RSP has to choose its parliamentary party leader. During election campaigning, RSP had gained votes promising Prime Ministership to Balendra Shah. If RSP continues to keep up its promise, Balendra Shah would become the youngest Prime Minister of Nepal. Weather updates from parts of India now. India is experiencing sharply contrasting weather patterns this week, with heat wave conditions building across western regions, while Himalayan belt and northeast brace for rain, thunderstorms and hail. The Indian Meteorological Department has warned of heat wave conditions over Rajasthan, Gujarat and Vidarbha on the 10th of March and 11th of it, while a western disturbance is influencing weather over the western Himalayan region. Jammu and Kashmir is expected to receive heavy rainfall and snowfall on 10th and 11th of March, along with thunderstorms and possible hail. Thunderstorms and hailstorms are likely in Himachal Pradesh from 11th and 12th of March. Weather activity may intensify until the 12th of March, weaken briefly and then strengthen again between the 14th and the 16th of March. IMD stated that the country is expected to witness rising heat in western regions, while the hills and the northeast experience unsettled weather conditions through midweek. The world recorded its 5th hottest February on record, according to Copernicus Climate Change Service. Global temperatures were about 1.49 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels. Western and southern Europe saw above average rainfall and flooding, while other parts experienced colder and drier conditions. Warmer than average temperatures were also reported in the United States, Northeast Canada, West Asia and Central Asia. Update from sports now. The Board of Control for Cricket in India announced a cash reward of 131 crore rupees for the entire squad following its 3rd T20 Cricket World Cup victory. The amount covers 15 players, coaching staff, other support staff. The amount is an increment of 6 crore rupees from 125 crore rupees that Rohit Sharma's team was awarded back in 2024. India lifted the prestigious trophy after defeating New Zealand by 96 runs in the finals in Ahmedabad. India not only defended the title but also became the first team to win the T20 Cricket World Cup trophy thrice. 20 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 Cricket World India fast bowler Arshdeep Singh has been fined 15% of his match fee for breaching ICC Code of Conduct during T20 World Cup final against New Zealand in Ahmedabad. The incident occurred in the 11th over of New Zealand's innings when Arshdeep fielded the ball on his follow-through and threw it aggressively and inappropriately, hitting batter Daryl Mitchell's pads. In addition to this, one demerit point has been added to Arshdeep's disciplinary record. It was the first offence in a 24-month period. Arshdeep accepted the sanction proposed by match referee Andy Pycroft. India will once again take centre stage in global parasport as the second edition of World Para-Athletics Grand Prix begins in New Delhi on Wednesday. Over 250 athletes from 8 nations will compete for top honours at prestigious Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium in New Delhi. The event will feature athletes from India, Russia, Nepal, Bhutan, Hong Kong, Serbia, Bosnia and Egypt, highlighting the growing international presence of para-athletics in the host nation. India will field the largest contingent with over 200 athletes competing across multiple track and field events and sport classifications. The tournament will conclude on the 13th of March. A total of 74 international classification slots will be available during the competition. And that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.